You're just picking up these little nuggets from a football coach here and a track coach here. And the best programs in any sport that I've always been a part of has always had 1 to 3 kids on that team where it's a two-way street between them and the coach, where they can come sit down in the office and feel comfortable enough in their own skin and in that head coach's office to say, hey, this is what's going on.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head boys basketball coach at Liberty Christian School, Preston Nadolski. Coach Nadolski is entering his 16th year of coaching overall, 6th as a head coach. He's previously been at Melissa, Colleyville Heritage, and McKinney North High School. At Liberty, Coach Nadolski has 96 wins and led the Warriors to a district championship in 2022. He was also named District Coach of the Year in 2022. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
There you go.
There he is.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good.
The beard game is strong right now.
Yeah, off-season beard here.
I like that. How are you?
And I'm doing all right.
And first, I just want to thank you so much for giving up your time. I've really appreciated your friendship the last few years and getting to kind of know you better as a person, but then really admired the way that your teams at Liberty Christian play. And I think, I like the way that you do things. So this is, I'm excited to get to learn more about you and your coaching.
Yeah, well, man, I'm just honored to be asked. And like I said, I hope I can provide something useful. I don't know if I will or not, but I appreciate it. And I think I may have told you this last year. Listening to the podcasts it's been like overwhelming for me because last year, maybe it was, you've been doing this for 2 years now?
2 years now, man.
Yeah. So I guess it was 2 years ago. I think it was when you just started. And I was listening to everyone and writing notes down. And then I just had a big pile of stuff. I'm like, no, there's no way I'm going to get to through all this. And so I've tried to be a little bit more pick and choose about what I write down and try to take from it. But it's just been a joy to listen to it. And so, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to say anything that hasn't already been said or is even half as good as the other guests you've had on. But
well, first of all, I think you're being too humble. I learned something from every talk. So I know that'll happen. I appreciate you saying that about the episodes. It's been a ton of fun. And this is a part of season 4, which I'm really excited about. Again, the motivation is to the D1 guys and things like that's fun to talk to them and they have some good stuff. But a big part of it was highlighting coaches like yourself, like me, like guys at the high school level that, unless you win state and you get invited to TABC to speak, you don't normally have a platform to share the cool things that you do. And again, knowing how you guys play, the success that you've had, and just getting to know you a little bit better, I can't wait for this. So, and I also get what you're saying too on it's just too much. I mean, in these kind of modes when I'm recording a ton of these episodes, it's overload. And I told my wife that the other night. I was like, my head kind of hurts. One, I'm not very smart, but 2, it's like there's just so many good things. It's like, what all do I actually take? What do I use? But I think that's the art of it is everybody has good stuff, but you can't do everything. And so you have to choose really, okay, for my clientele, for the way that I love to play and for how we do things, this can work or that's really good. And I wish I could, but I just don't have the bandwidth for it. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's probably the growth of a mature coach is figuring out what can fit to what he does and what he can use versus what is just going to make things too complicated and just overload. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like that in anything. I mean, you could think nutrition, you could think supplements, you could think I really try to research sleep because I don't sleep well. And, I might listen to one guy that says you got to do a little bit of magnesium threonate at night with a little L-theanine. And then another guy will say, well, you need some NAC, and you need some other stuff. It's like, obviously I I don't want to have a list of 20 things that I'm taking before.
And you're losing sleep thinking about if you took the right stuff.
That's right. Or who else knows what I'm doing? But workouts the same way.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of good plans out there, but you can't do them all. Your workout can't be 3 hours long.
Right.
And so I do think that's what's comfortable, what works within what you're already doing. What can you add that doesn't take away a lot of time? I think that's maybe the art of it. I think coaches are constantly, and we talked about it at the beginning, listening to podcasts, watching documentaries, reading books, trying to get better, going to clinics. And so we're borrowing things, we're adding things to our bucket. What's something that you've borrowed lately?
So this year I've started listening to the B-Ball Immersion podcast.
Oh yeah.
Along with yours. Those are probably the two that I listen to as far as basketball goes.
I listen to theirs first. Those guys are awesome.
And so the Joe Crispin one, I don't know if you heard that one. And that
I haven't yet, but
okay. Well, that's going to be right up your alley, knowing the way that you like to play. And I mean, it's just all offense. And it's sort of different than the way I grew up as an assistant coach. I grew up for some defensive, as an assistant, some really defensive minded coaches. And so to listen to that, just the complete other end of the spectrum, was eye-opening. And the thing that I'm really taking, I listened to it early in the year, but that I'm using in my off season right now that he talked about was he loves 3-on-3 in his open gyms. And so I've always kind of been, hey, let's open gym and 5-on-5 and get guys playing and, cutthroat maybe, or have 2 games going, loser court, winner court, all that kind of stuff. But so we've been doing a lot more 3-on-3, and we do the FIBA rules, so it doesn't stop. It's active, and I think, and this is what he's talked about. He's saying, especially the younger, and so with our middle schoolers, you really start to see, okay, this guy has some IQ. This guy understands how to cut without the ball. He understands how to anticipate where a pass is going defensively, what's going to be open. And then the other thing I like about it too, as far as development goes, you can't hide.
Yeah.
In 3-on-3. And you have, even if you're talking to a kid, for both of us, especially in our sub-varsity and our middle school grades, we get kids that don't have a lot of background in basketball, but we don't want to, run them off early, right? We want to try to develop them. And so for kids like that, in a 5-on-5 game, they may not have any impact on the game. They may just be getting some cardio in. And in a 3-on-3, they will a lot of times organically find ways to impact the game, either rebounding or setting screens or talking. And then when they come off, you can, as a coach, just talk to them. Hey, what are you doing out there? How are you helping the team win? Like, okay, what can you do? That kid can really shoot it. How can you get him open? How can you, get him the ball and things like that? And so they can't hide. It makes them get better. And because they're going to be in 3-on-3, they're going to impact the game, and for good or for bad, they have to find a positive way that they can impact. And then so that's been great. And then I love the FIBA rules too, just because there's not checking the ball. I mean, we're just going. So you get more games in. If you do have a group sitting out, they're going to get right back in. It's not going to be long. We usually do the elam ending. Although I think there is value sometimes to doing it on a clock and just understanding, and like, you know what, we don't have a shot clock in our league. Another topic for another day. Yeah. But understand the clock. Like today we're going to play with a clock. Let's see does that change the way we do this at all? Yeah. And then just see if they change the way they play at all, or if they don't. And so it's fun to just watch. I play with them. Assistant coaches play with them too, and so.
Can you still hoop, man?
I don't know that I ever could really hoop, but I'm probably actually, haven't gotten much worse, but I don't know if I'm any better. So.
But you don't get injured or hurt after? I mean, like a couple of days later, just all of a sudden you sneeze and your back goes out?
No, I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm about to turn 41 in about a week, but I did the last time I played in an actual league. It was 5 years ago. I was playing in a men's league, and I got a steal, and I go up for a layup, and a guy that's like a 260-pound guy just undercuts me. So I was like, okay, from now on, I don't jump. There's no more strong finishes for me anymore. But we have a staff versus kids pep rally game. That's a ton of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Staff's undefeated. I'm gonna make sure, got to keep that going. And
you better.
It goes into my interviews when
that's right.
Interview assistants.
The staff better be young and they can hoop to keep that going, because
shoot.
we're going to start to really pull the games down. No, I love the 3-on-3 approach, and you're right. Like we do just a 2 times a week, just an open gym look with 5-on-5, and part of it is to really, for me to step away and to let them experiment, really, in like, call it the laboratory experiment. There's no stops. I'm not coaching, but you're right. A guy without a lot of skill or without a lot of experience can sometimes not even touch the ball. It's with older guys that just know and they can create, or there's 4 guys that have played together, one guy that has it. It's very easy. And defensively too, they can guard somebody else that's similar. And so they're really not getting, to your point, just cardio. 3-on-3 is great for that. You can't hide the space as just a big dimension to it. And I love the FIBA rules, but it made me think of, it's a great way to, and basketball immersion is also with this, the constraints approach. You can teach concepts without actually having to 3-on-0 them just by a constraint. One thing we did in PGC that I really liked was every pass had to be caught behind the 3-point line, unless it was a cut that resulted in the catch in the paint. So what it got was, after I maybe drove to the paint and kicked, I can't just stand in there. I've got to get out and move. You have nobody standing inside the 3-point line, just in that, no man's area, because they know they have to receive the ball outside the 3. It just instantly creates the space that we want, but just with one rule. And that's really good.
You're also not going to jog your cuts anymore.
Yep.
Because there's no point, you're going to have to cut hard, or there's no point to cutting. And yeah, and we do that too. And so we've done that in practice with like just setting up advantages and then, letting them go. We do that in our 5-on-5. But yeah, with 3-on-3, the other thing that I discovered too is you will watch the kids do what you'll find out what they do well, sometimes that you wouldn't have if you're putting your own practice on. And so, we haven't traditionally done a whole lot of ball screen stuff. But then, there may be a kid that maybe he's a new kid, a move in, and he's calling for ball screens and he's reading it right, every time. And
yeah,
I was watching the Lakers game last night. Austin Reeves, just every decision off the ball screen. And it's like, okay, well, let's let this kid learn. This is something that we can do for him, And then you're right. We can even say this game, every possession start with a ball screen. Every possession start with a pin down, or, and so, we can do that. But I'm like you this time of year. We kind of let them go, and then I learn from them. And then when they come off, I may just say something to them and try to highlight a strength of something they're doing, and then one weakness or something they could be doing differently. And I try not to do it from like the head coach perspective, but just from, hey, I just saw this. That was a great cut. You need to cut more.
Yeah.
They're going to find you if you cut hard, things like that. So
I like that.
Yeah, the 3-on-3. And then I listen to yours, and I follow him on Twitter, Alex Sarama, the podcast you did with him. And so he's really big, I know, on Twitter with all the side games, or the special situation games, things like that. And so we've done a lot more of that over the last year too. And
with the way that you guys are playing now, with getting up and down more, playing in transition, I mean, what you really want is just to create habits in your players that they can instinctively do, where they don't have to look over at your shoulder. There's never a point that says, man, what should I do in this moment? They know, because, and I do think 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and then some versions of 5-on-5 can really lead to that type of decision making from your guys.
Right. And that's what, the idea, as far as in my mind going forward, as we move through the summer, when we can start coaching them again in leagues and things like that, and then is, all right, let's take all these things that we worked on in 3-on-3. You were great, Matt, at this in 3-on-3. How does that translate to this 5-on-5 situation? When will we have that situation for you? And then just setting up, okay, hey, we have 2 guys on the weak side. We have a 3-on-3 game going over here on the strong side. What do you 2 guys need to be doing? Are y'all exchanging? Are we cutting? Are we pinning down? What are we doing? Stagger over here. And so then we just add that piece to it. And then it creates a 3-on-3 situation out of it, with an advantage, hopefully, somewhere.
Yeah. I think too, it's and you mentioned a little bit ago about this time of year, in the spring, it being a little bit different than in season. And I kind of think that's important. You and I are at the same size school where we have some guys that, there's that idea of they like it, they love it, they live it. Yeah. Majority of my guys like it. I hope so. Some of them love it. Very few live it, right. Where it's just all they do. And so knowing that we have those different levels of players, if our spring completely mirrors, it's the same as in season. I don't know. I think there's a time for fun. I think there's a time while still working hard and trying to achieve some goals and get better. 3-on-3 is fun. The way I'm letting the guys play pickup and our scoring and the way we finish each game, and that the way that we're using skill work to try to tie into some concepts, like it's fun. But then I also take the approach of, all right, I've transitioned I'm their skill coach this time of year. That doesn't mean our culture is still there. I'm still holding them accountable, but we're not really talking about next year. And I'm trying to put them in situations in skill development where I don't know exactly what they run at their select practices or with their teams, but I know this skill work will help them there. So instead of it's just all geared towards faith basketball, which is 8 months away at this point, it's actually helping them get better individually with the ball. And that's why the Micah Lancaster stuff, in my opinion, is so big. And he talks about his skill work. It's 100% skill, 0% game. So it's really no game situations at all. It's all about, can they get lower, more dynamic? But then when you add in that 3-on-3 approach to where they're learning some things on the fly, or you're getting to learn from them, like, oh, they're really good at this. Actually, they can handle this. I think that helps us for the future.
Yeah, it's a great way for me too to evaluate those guys that were on JV last year, yep. 8th graders last year, and I hadn't seen as much. And I tell them, I kind of look at it this way: is the spring is time to be selfish. Like, hey, take it. You're open, man. Shoot it. And then in your own skill development, it's also time to look in the mirror. What are you bad at? What are you good at? We have exit interviews at the end of the season, and the springtime's really working on that. We use summertime around here too, is for conditioning, and then we play a lot. We do a summer league. It's sort of back to now. Now we're in a little bit of evaluating too. We're trying to get better as a team, but we're evaluating you and how you handle different situations. And then in the fall, it's a little bit more of closer to like the season of, the guys that we have that are in basketball of we're here to work now.
Yeah.
And so yes, like you said, spring is a little more relaxed atmosphere. Everything we do, we have some non-negotiables about how you work, and your effort level when you're on the court. But other than that, it's a pretty relaxed as far as restrictions and things go. And so, yeah, I definitely agree that as a coach, I think, there's so much talk now about kids getting burnout from year round and select and private coaches and their high school coaches and all that stuff. I think coaches can get burnout too, And so if I'm feeling like I've got to come up with a practice plan 10 months out of the year, I'm going to get burned out on it.
Yep.
And I'm going to get in a rut too. I'm going to get less creative. I'm not going to do new things. And so giving myself a break also is going to lead hopefully to a better coach in November through next March.
That's a great point. I mean, it's our improvement season too. That's why you and I are having this talk, and that's why we are out there trying to learn new things. And as we want our players developing, we need to be doing it too. So again, instead of doing what we did in October through February with those guys, all right, hey, this time of year, we're going to get outside the box a little bit. We're going to get a little uncomfortable. As a coach, I'm going to get uncomfortable, and I'm going to teach some things. I don't know about you. I struggle sometimes to teach things that I never did as a player. So I never Euroed. I never did that. And so I'm reluctant to teach it. But I think just because I am not comfortable with it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be teaching it or I shouldn't be introducing it. A drop is a type of footwork that we want our guys just to know, but it can't just be from one place. Michael Lancaster talked about you have to be using like a thumbprint. You've got when you do your thumbprint, you do all different types, on your phone back in the day with iPhones. It's kind of the same thing with skill work. let's put them in all different types of situations with the same skill, but different variations. And I just think that's what this time is for. But to your point, it's like culture doesn't change. Like, we're still trying to be excellent. It's just now it's not about faith basketball. To your point, it's the individual, and each of you taking this workout, and it's not just here, take it and do it other places. And then I like what you said too about shot selection. Like, I want every Monday and Friday, I'll watch our guys do, and that we got the guns behind. So if they're not playing, they're shooting, but they're playing, the pickup is right here. And I'm watching guys airball threes, shoot threes that in my head, I'm like, I just don't know why they're shooting that. But you know what? Like, this is the time to do it.
Yeah. I never say anything to them about that in the spring.
Oh, but
I'm making a mental note.
But I want to. Like, it's hard. I'm like, you know what? Obviously, you're like, I really don't think good shooters should airball. It's rare if they do, but if it's multiple times and day after day, and you got to think like, okay, at some point, maybe you're hurting your team, but it is their time to, like, I'm preaching, this is the time to experiment. This is the time to try things out. Their playing time is not dependent on what you do in skill work right now, what you do in pickup. Well, man, I can't say that and then go right back around and say, hey, you know what? It's probably not a good shot for you.
Here's like, you know what I like to see though in those situations? And this, I like to see other guys, older guys, be the ones to say something about that. Hey, we're trying to win here. If we're playing 3-on-3, why are you shooting that?
Yeah.
Or I've just hit 2. And then you just took a tough shot when I just hit, I'm open. And I like to see how our players handle that interaction. And then I like to coach. I'm way more likely to coach a kid on a better player on how they handle a teammate that's not very good than I am to coach that worst teammate right now about a shot he took. And so, we've had guys, one that I've used, it seems like a lot, is because, in small schools, if we are doing 5-on-5, you're going to have some bad players playing with some really good players. If you're trying to make the teams even and all that kind of stuff, or just old school pickup ways, you're going to have some bad players. And so if Preston's terrible at basketball and I'm open and Matt throws me the ball and it goes through my hands and out of bounds, and I see Matt and he's like yelling at, catch the ball and all this stuff. And, and then I'll pull Matt aside and say, hey, do you think he really didn't know that he needed to catch the ball? Do you think that, do you think that you yelling at him is all right? So how can you handle that better? And then, just here's how you instill confidence in him is you pull him aside and be like, hey, Preston, you keep getting open, I'm going to keep feeding. So you better be ready next time. Next time you're open, I'm coming back to you again. So be ready to catch next time. And so, and how you frame it. So that's the other kind of stuff I'm looking at, especially with returning varsity guys. And a lot of my guys, to their credit, have asked, they want to be better leaders. And so, I try, those are the moments, I tell them, I was like, look, I don't have, actually, I think you do. You have like a class that you teach on leadership, right? Or is that, okay.
I don't.
So I don't have a textbook that we can like go through. There's a million of them out there.
Unless you're talking about AP Sound Study Hall that I teach every day, where it's all about life and golden nuggets right now.
There you go. So I would love that. But, and so I'm just saying, I'm like, those things happen organically. And when I look, there's just opportunities for leadership all around you all the time. And so I don't know when they're going to be, but when I see them, I'll try to point them out to you. And so those little things. And so I tell them that ahead of time. So then when I pull them aside and be like, look, he can't catch. It's your fault for throwing him the ball. Like, don't throw it that hard. Like,
it's always the fault of the better player. Yeah. Any turnover is always the fault of the better player. And so when you put that ownership on them, man, that's a great nugget. And I didn't think about that before, but I think another reason to, in the spring, in their improvement season, to take more of an individualistic approach with what you're doing. Again, Liberty basketball ended 2 months ago. Obviously the things we're doing right now is going to help us for the future, no doubt, but it's not about this set, this defense, any of that, or even a style of play as much as just concepts and training. But what it does is it frees us up to also zoom out. And what if in the spring we can help sidestep some landmines for next season? because we're seeing lack of leadership at times, or leadership that is just a little misguided, that we can bring them over. Because I think if we were focused on our practice plan or getting to the next thing and not taking these moments, maybe we'd miss some opportunities. And it's funny. I sit there in my chair watching them play pickup, and you're right on the money. It's less and less about what they're actually doing action wise. I celebrate a lot, but then it's more about how they interact with each other. And I think I get to learn a lot watching them. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. We get to learn from and listen to some great leaders. What's one quality that you see in great leaders?
So and this is kind of cliche, I guess, but it's communication, and communicating in a way that's authentic. And I think when I think about the times as a leader that I've failed, it hasn't been authentic. It was me with just it was more emotional than it was, or fake emotion even sometimes. And so I think, the cool thing about our job is we're surrounded by leaders, whether it's our school admin, whether it's student leadership that we see. That's been one of the most impressive things about being here at Liberty Christian, is you just see some students that are unbelievable in ministry and basketball and academic, some really incredible. And so I get to learn from them. And then teachers, other coaches on this campus. We've got a football coach pretty well known here, and I love to just watch him coach and just listen to him, just listen to his conversations, in his office and things like that. And so I take a lot from all of that. But what I've seen is, and I also, as someone that considers myself obviously in a leadership position, as I'm in these situations in a meeting, I'm thinking, this is either ineffective or this is really effective, as I'm listening to an administrator or to another coach or to a student that's leading something. And so I'm taking these mental notes of, why is this not effective to me right now? Why am I finding myself, as a responsible person that wants to hear this, somewhat checking out, And so I think that's what I usually come back to is, does this communication, whatever it is that they're telling me, whatever it is going on, does it feel authentic? Does it feel like they really mean it? Do they actually really care about what they're saying right now? And I think as good as because I do it all the time, and I'm probably a little cynical as well, so are our kids. High school kids are the most cynical, and they can see through the most. And so if you're not being authentic, they see through it. And I've been really fortunate to have my first year here. I had a young man that was an unbelievable leader, and I learned more from him as far as leadership goes than he ever learned from me. Hopefully I taught him a little basketball along the way, but just the way that everything, it was always positive. And he had 100% credibility with every single teammate, every kid in our program. And it was just amazing to watch. I would call meetings, with him. We'd meet once a week. And again, I was doing that selfishly to learn from him. And then I would get the temperature of the locker room. Yeah. And then any comments that I had, anything that maybe I wasn't liking or really liking, man, it went to the team and it was fixed. It was incredible. And so senior I had this year, Jimmy, I remember a couple of years ago when he was coming from JV to varsity, and we were playing in a fall league game, and I had a freshman, and they're sitting on the bench. I had never made mention of this the entire year up to this point. I'd mentioned it in previous years with all our program in season, but never mentioned it the very first time out in it must have been a summer league game. So it was the very first time out. I'm talking to the team, or maybe it was after the game even. I don't remember. But we're sitting there, and I'm talking to him, and I have a freshman sitting there, and he's looking off, and Jimmy I just noticed it out of the corner of my eye, just quick elbow, and just pointed towards me. And it was like, that's worth its weight in gold right there, for a kid that's about to be a junior, hasn't even played a varsity season yet. And so that to me is just natural, organic communication. The kid understood immediately what he was saying right then. I never once had done the old eyes on coach or everybody stop. Which I hadn't said that yet. and he just did it automatically. And so it's those little things like that that I think are that really good leaders that have that authentic communication, just naturally almost.
Yeah, a lot of good nuggets there. For one question I had about the player leaders you're talking about, where did that come from? Because you had said that you really hadn't talked. It was when you're first getting there, you hadn't really talked a lot about that, or is it just something that they had? Did it come from their parents? And like, did you ever have that conversation with them?
Yeah. So in we had when I was at McKinney North High School, that's where I was before here. So I worked for Daryl Kraft. You know him well, and totally different type of personality from me. But I learned a ton from him and the way he holds kids accountable. And then there's a track coach there too, Melvin Crosby. You probably know him, maybe. I don't know. He's and just the way that he would talk to kids and develop, and just constantly asking them, what would a leader do in these situations? How would a leader handle this? What would you expect? And so I had those conversations with the young man I was talking about earlier, Matthew, in his first year. But and then as I'm asking these questions, I'm mentally writing down his responses. Yeah, that's really good, Matthew. Yeah, I've got to remember that. So his dad was a former military officer in the military. I mean, he definitely incredible parents. His mom was a elementary teacher here. So surely a lot of it came from him. The school, I feel like Liberty does a great job developing leaders. He was one of those kids that was a Liberty lifer. And so the training that we do here, I think, to our students from the time they're in kindergarten all the way through, it's a consistent message they're getting for 13 years.
Yeah.
And so I think he was an embodiment of that, and a result of that as well. And then, hopefully I have something to do with it as well. Like I said, I think for me, a lot of it is just that reminding of, hey, you said you wanted to be a leader on this team. This was an opportunity. How are you handling? What are you doing to take advantage of this opportunity?
I think it's really impressive that you bring those guys in, talk to them, but not just give that. I think a lot of coaches would bring, their leaders in or players that they trust and tell, hey, this is what I need. I need you to go talk to. But to actually bring them in and get their input. You mentioned something like knowing what the pulse is or so what of the team, like that. That is, I mean, that to me, that information is huge. Knowing actually what we think the direction of the team is, but knowing really what the direction is and how they're feeling. I mean, you and we're the same age. I don't know about you. I recognize now and feel the difference between where as a 41-year-old to them. And so we might think everything's great, but man, having those leaders that you trust and empowering them, enabling them, that when you talk to them, what they tell you matters, that you're actually listening. I don't know. I think that's a rare quality that you have.
The best programs I've been a part of, and I kind of came up through the old-fashioned middle school coaching, public school, where you coach every sport and all that. And so I've been a part of some state championship football programs and some state tournament basketball programs, and all along the way, you're just picking up these little nuggets from a football coach here and a track coach here. And the best programs in any sport that I've always been a part of has always had 1 to 3 kids on that team where it's a two-way street between them and the coach, where they can come sit down in the office and feel comfortable enough in their own skin and in that head coach's office to say, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe it's this kid is not doing what you're asking him to do. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing off the court. He's not, outside of school, or it's, hey, the guys are not happy about this. And I kind of feel like, they may have a point here, and they're comfortable enough to say that to the coach. And so I've been fortunate enough to have a few teams here that way where I've had that relationship. And then at McKinney North, Melissa, places I've been, to see enough of that to understand that is so valuable. And it's, you can't put a point differential on that. Like, the health, it improves the health of the culture so much to be able to have that relationship. And you don't have to have it with everybody on the team.
Yeah.
And it can be different year to year, but just there needs to be some form, open line of communication. where the kid feels comfortable about calling the meeting, and then where he's also okay with being called out as the leader, you know? And so, yeah, I can't put a value on that.
I think it comes down to like your self-confidence as a coach. I think early on at Faith, I was trying to show confidence, and maybe I was confident in, some of the skill work aspect or shooting, but within team dynamic and culture and the vibe of the team, I think I wanted to always show that I had the answers, but it was really masking insecurities on my part. And then I don't know, somewhere along the lines, maybe it just happens. I think some coaches naturally have the self-confidence to really ask their players for their opinion, because it's showing vulnerability that, you're interested in their opinions. You might have an idea of the direction to go, but you don't know 100%. I think that's sometimes scary for coaches. I felt that way too. But when you at some point when you get that self-confidence in, one, I don't know everything, and that's okay. And I really want to know what they think. And in order for me to get that information, I've got to ask them, and I've got to open up and be vulnerable. And then even harder, when they do have a suggestion, really think about it. And like you said, Beth, very authentic in communication, like not just look, oh, that's great. Sure, 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 sure.
Yeah.
Really listen to them and actually put things in, to a point where in games or in practice, we consider what the suggestions they're making. I just think that takes a lot of, I don't know. I just go back to maybe self-awareness, self-confidence that you seem to have.
You got to have humility too, I think, is a part of it.
Yeah.
And if you're overly prideful, then that's gonna lead to failure, in my opinion, especially in that way. And the kids will see that too. And so if we try not to, even saying this almost feels like I'm taking credit or whatever, but I'm always trying to not take any credit for anything that goes on, with the team.
I'm just so humble, and I'm really proud of myself
for
even
how
saying
humble.
that,
exactly. But
all right, Moses.
You do have to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
And so even though it feels prideful to say I'm, intentionally being humble in this moment, which feels ironic, but you do have to be intentional about it. And so, you, like you said, I could tell that kid tomorrow, hey, I thought about what you're saying. Look, and we can't do it. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep doing this because this is what's going to work. And you guys are going to just have to buckle up, and that's the way it's going to be. But I feel like I have to feel like he and I have that relationship to where when I say, what I thought about it, that A, I really did think about it, and B, that he understands that, yeah, coach really thought about it. I trust that coach did, I think this might even be leading to your next question, but it sort of leads to the whole, fitting the style of players, the players' style and things like that. And I give, I use some of the spring for that, like we talked about earlier. I'm like, okay, you know what, this style is not going to work for this group of guys. And so there may be something better. And I think back to, I came from McKinney North where we were 4 out, 1 in, dribble drive. And it was always, okay, well, this year he'll be in that role. You're looking ahead to your guys and these fit in these spots and things like that. And I tried to do that here my first year to a varying degree of success. Huge jump from where they were before I got here. But and then as we moved on, I guess my third year, we just took a look and looked at the success we were having, the games that we won, the games that we lost, what's working, what's not working. And we just had a team meeting. And I had a group of kids that were extremely comfortable having those conversations with. Were very thoughtful kids, cared about winning above all else. Not one of them cared who got any credit for any of it. They only wanted to win. And so we had that talk about, listen, I think in our district, we were with Midland Christian, and that's when they had Van Zant. And I said, if we want to be district champions, and that's what you guys say, I believe the best way to do that for us is going to be to play really slow. And and it was hard for me to even suggest it, but it was because we hadn't done it. I know Kraft, at McKinney North had done that in situations, and so I learned from him how to do it and implement it. But it wasn't something that I'd ever really done before, and so this was at about during the Christmas break that we made this decision. And so they had questions. We talked about it. We hashed it out. What does this mean? Or are we always going to play slow? Are we holding the ball? What is exactly? And so we just kind of laid out different scenarios, and then they just 100% bought into it because they knew that I was only doing this from the perspective of we got a bunch of seniors in here that want to be district champions, and this is what's going to help us get it done. And so every one of them pushed their ego aside. They knew it was fewer possessions, fewer shots, but they didn't care. And then we won the district championship, and we did it. And there were times we actually did hold the ball, which is not, it's not one of my proudest moments or anything.
Yeah.
But I don't think, our whole thing was, listen, Joseph Van Zandt is better than all of you. Okay. And so the best way to beat him is for him not to have the basketball. And so I felt like we kind of they had the best player by a long shot, but maybe we had players 2 through 6. And so we can play keep away from him. And then, but then we would say when he checks out of the game, we're full on. We got to get as many possessions as we can until he gets back in. And then, so anyway, they understood that. We did it. When we had some easier games in our district play, I let them open up and play a little bit more. And we let guys get a lot of, numbers and things like that. But yeah, it just goes back, into the whole communication with the kids. Not every team I had would have bought into that, just because we didn't have that relationship. We didn't have that communication.
Obviously, you had set up some a pretty special environment for them to feel that trust with you, to really let you know how they felt. I think players asking why is a good thing.
Yeah.
Sure. Every Thursday we do yoga right now. Yoga hoops. It's a 20-minute workout. They love it. And then we take about a 3 or 4 minute break before we shoot free throws we have chapel that day. So it's a shorter day anyway. And I take that 3 or 4 minutes just to check in and see how are things going. But then more importantly, what are your thoughts? Like what changes we've been working on load ups right now. I mean, attacking at somebody, raising that hip up, bringing the ball to my pocket, and then ultimately we land in a drop. But from that one load up move, golly, you can do a lot of things. But, I get excited about it. I think it's interesting in that it'll really help them if they add it to their tool belt. But I kind of want to know what they think. Like, Coach, honestly, I'm not, this is a waste of time. They've never said that. But if they did, I mean, I would think I'd take it into consideration. But I think when those kids ask why, it forces us to really know the answer. Like, we really need to know why we're doing what we're doing. How many times do we do things that, well, I don't know, Coach Kraft did it. Coach Watson did it at McKinney. Yeah. My high school coach did it. And honestly, guys, that's we're not going to do that anymore. I was talking to Coach the other day that Jeff Evans that said, we don't do movement prep at all. We do some things to get a movement, but we just don't need to do it, but I don't know. I as soon as he said that, I thought, oh man, I just feel injuries coming. But I think that why isn't bad. And then ultimately it makes us, it really puts the ownership back on us to either we have a good reason and we can communicate that effectively, or we don't. They've called us on it, and maybe there's a better way.
Yeah, I love it when kids ask that. Now, sometimes I tell them, like, let's talk after practice. Maybe right in the middle of the drill is not the best time to ask, but yeah.
No, that's just, I mean, those conversations, just like the ones you talked about having this spring with how players communicate, that's important too. Like Mike Neighbors talked about, he gives out a list of his pet peeves to players before the season, and they have to, they have to read all the things that he can't stand, but then he does the flip too. He lets them write things. What's their pet peeves as players, and it's up to him and his staff to do their very, very best to honor that.
Yeah, I had a kid that would love to come in the middle of the school day, stop by my room, and he wanted to see the practice plan. And he's like, I like to know what drills we're doing. I'll talk to the other guys, get them ready, So, and I loved that. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
And he would ask, and he would say, hey, we haven't done this in a while, and I mean, it was awesome. I love that,
Coach, they're co-creators of the culture. And I know for a fact that you and I haven't scored a point in all of our years of coaching. And so we really do want them to be on board and all in. Obviously, here's one thing Coach Tang really helped me with a video that he put out early this year about winning. And he said, everything we're going to do is going to lead to winning.
Yeah,
And if it doesn't, then we're not going to do that thing. And if you're not about it, I think if your players know that, and parents tend to throw that out when they're disgruntled, that it just seems like you're all about winning. Well, obviously there's more. There's more to it than that. Like, we're building them up as young men. We're dealing with life lessons, but in a sports environment. But every decision we make should lead to winning. And if it does, they deep down, they trust that. I think they respect that. Sometimes winning means that little Timmy's not going to play very much. Right. And it might be difficult for him at that point, but the rest of the players will know that, man. And I think that's what we talk about. We're upfront with, like, listen, this is a system of play that I love, but I also feel like it's going to lead to winning. That's what you did when you felt like this isn't a style deep down that I love, but this is going to lead to winning. Players got on board with that. When you go to a style of play, and I've done that before, where it just seems to be all about maybe scoring points or shooting a certain amount of threes, and winning is kind of off to the side. Man, I saw their trust erode in those moments. And so it doesn't really matter what style that you choose, whatever you love, they need to believe that it's going to lead to winning.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, it goes back to having the relationship. I think this of just the two-way street of communication. So if you have that, if you build it and build it, when you get down to that critical kind of juncture in our season right now of what are we going to be when these games really start counting, there was complete trust in the room. If we were trying to build trust at that moment, it would have been a disaster.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. You and I are at very similar schools, same size, but the makeup too. I feel like there's a lot of similarities between Liberty and Faith. We both have two-sport athletes. How do you balance that? How do you work with them? Because I know as a younger coach, it was something that kind of drove me crazy when I'd see the football coach with his arm around our guys, and I'd even think that way, our guys, very territorial. I've matured so much. No. How do you balance it?
So I think my personal background helps a lot. I played multiple sports growing up, even at the high school level, and then specifically all the way through varsity, my senior year, football and basketball. And I was actually a much better football player than I was a basketball.
Really?
But I just loved basketball so much more. And part of it was our football program I grew up in I had 3 different head coaches in 4 years. Basketball program, we were really good. Had the same coach, the coach that came in my 7th grade year. So went to his camp, built a relationship, and then we were just a really good, healthy program my entire time there. And so I would look forward to going to basketball, but I loved playing football too. And like I said, I was pretty good at it. And so understanding that too. And then my background was during football season, I had my buddies, and I think one of my high school teammates, Jason Pritchard, the year older than me, and we had a couple of 6'10" kids. We had a 6'6" kid. We were really big, and but I would always hear from my other friends that, like, hey, listen, so and so is getting better. You're not going to have a spot. This is during football season, and I'm like, well, okay. Well, when football practice ended, I'm going home and I'm getting shots up, and all fall, and then in basketball season, I'm hearing from all my football buddies, hey, we're in here lifting, you're in there playing around with a basketball, and we're all getting stronger, and you're not going to have your spot. Well, okay, after basketball practice, I'm going to go lift, And so just having my own personal accountability towards it. And so just understanding that. And then the other thing was, as a kid, I grew up in a small East Texas town. I was always just looking for a court somewhere, like year round. Like that's everlasting memory as a child of like, okay, this kid's dad works at this elementary school. I bet he can get me a gym. And next thing I know, I'm best friends with that kid tomorrow at school because his dad might get us in the gym. And so so I think about that, and I think about the kids. Okay, who out there, is like me? They want to do both. And I don't want to pressure them. I don't want to be the coach that's, hey, you haven't been in the gym. I've been logging your hours. You're over here doing this football stuff and all that. I'm not that way at all. I leave them alone, but I tell them, here's the opportunities. Tuesdays and Thursdays all fall. Y'all don't have football meetings those days. If you want to can get here at the same time you normally get here for your football meeting. The shooting guns are out, the gym's open, basketball racks out there. Go get shots up. I don't want you running. I don't want you to do anything that's going to potentially, mess up Friday night or anything like that. But the opportunity's there. I don't track it. I don't hold them to it, but I give them the opportunity because that's what I would have wanted as a kid. So the other thing, like I said, I came through the middle school ranks where you coach football, basketball, track, and then I was at Melissa where I coached 4 sports as the varsity basketball assistant. And
oh my goodness!
But we had huge overlaps of our season. And Sadler and I are literally driving from a basketball tournament in Fairfield, renting a car to Muleshoe for the state semifinal football game, or to Sweetwater, to play Muleshoe. And so having that and understanding coming through the small school of that way. And then I look at in McKinney North, Coach Kraft has done, and Jeff Clarkson's nephews. He's coached all 3 of them there at McKinney North. Yep. All 3 of them Division I football players, studs. Well, all 3 of them were first team all district basketball players too, or better. And a part of that is the kid. We're great kids, great family. But Kraft gave them those opportunities in the summer, and they took advantage of them. They were in the gym as much as he would let them, and so that background. And then I think here at Liberty, we as a coaching staff do a great job of it as well. I eat lunch with the football coach and the baseball coach and the track coach every day. And so we're talking about the kids, we talk about and I'll say, hey, how's my guy doing? And they know who I'm talking about. It's Trey Turner was a basketball player and all that. And then they give me updates and things like that. And so I just think that communication with the football coaches, I tell them, hey, on Friday nights, I'm your biggest fan. Outside other than your 2 parents, I'm your biggest fan on Friday nights. I'm rooting for you. And I always also make it a point to go at the football games. I'm going to go see my basketball player guys. I'm going to go see their parents and fist bump them. I may sit by them for a little bit at the football game.
Yeah.
And they hear me cheering out loud for their kid, or, and so just to make sure they understand that they have my support to do those things, to participate in those other sports. And then I think it just goes back to what we just talked about, builds trust. And, I think basketball, we have it the toughest because we have to wait on football season. We got to wait on football kids. And then, here I will always almost have 1 or 2 guys that are baseball guys too. And, baseball season is like basically our district season. They're already started. Yep. And so some of those guys maybe are pitchers and they want to go do long toss and get their arm ready for when they transition to baseball. And then track, those kids, things like, so we're the only sport, I guess soccer as well, where, we're having to wait, and then we're having somebody trying to take our guys early, and in their ears early. And so the other thing I do is I just address it early on with the other sport coaches, with our parents, especially not just the parents of those kids, but the parents of our straight basketball kids too. And I tell them, I knew this year we were going to have a good football team. I could just see it from the summer and the offseason, the work that the football team had put in and Coach Witten had done. I knew they were going to be good this year. And I told at our basketball meeting, I said, listen, our football season is going to go to Thanksgiving at minimum. And especially for our sub-varsities, we're really dependent on football guys. I don't know how you are, but
same.
Us having the team put together usually is not going to happen until football ends. And so I said, there's going to be a really tough transition when football ends, where guys' minutes are going to change. There may be a football kid that thinks he's varsity, he's playing JV. Your kid may have been playing varsity. They may move to JV. But I said, we have to do what's in the best interest of our program down the road for district. And it might mean that I'm playing someone who right now is not as good as your son because he needs these minutes. And it's the only way we can evaluate him. We don't have time to have we're in the middle, we're 10 games into our season, 14 games into our season. I don't have time to have a full-on tryout for these football kids. So we have to throw them in there, see what they're capable of doing, and then we can start reeling them back and pulling them back. And then, it's kind of like we got to take the puzzle apart, introduce some new pieces, and then try to put it back together where everybody fits, their minutes, their roles, what team they're on. And I tell them, and I was like, and a lot of y'all aren't going to be happy during that process. And there's going to be parent group chats going on. Can you believe that so-and-so, he scored 10 points and then this football kid came in, or maybe a football parent mad. Well, he was on varsity last year and coach made him go play in a JV tournament and, and things like that. And so I try to hit it head on. I use the experience that I've had as both a kid and then as a coach coaching multiple sports. And then I am respectful of those other sports too, and those coaches and those kids and their families. And like I said, I think that just builds a lot of trust early on.
Coach, there's a lot of gold there and a lot to unpack, and very convicting for me. Realize that I haven't done near the good things that you've done to make it a better environment here. And a lot of things that from that little talk right there that I'm definitely going to take away from it. Part of it is, I mean, your experience and my experience are different. I played multiple sports up through 8th grade. Swim was the last one. Thankfully, my mom let me stop swimming after the season. Hated the Speedo, didn't want to do that. But I knew basketball is my thing. So in high school, and I was at a bigger high school, at the Colony. And so that's all I did. And coach, I wasn't athletic enough. Not once did the football coaches ever come ask me to come play football. So that's how unathletic, in high school. And so I just had a different perspective of a view of more individualization as, for me, the way to become the very, very best version that I could. And so I think what that has influenced me quite a bit, especially starting out at Naaman Forest and at McKinney. I probably did not create a very healthy environment for my multi-sport athletes. Here at Faith, though, and I feel like you're the same way. Like, I'm not at Grapevine Faith, obviously not for the paycheck, but it's a bigger mission than that. And I love what the school represents. And if it was just about basketball, well, there's bigger places that you and I could coach. But there's something about being at these schools that we are. I never tell someone they should not play football. Right. You should not. You guys, listen, you should only be basketball players. One, our numbers don't support that. We can't all have just individual sport kids, or else, I don't know, there's probably only one sport that'll do well, and so we need that. I know that most of the time, I think when teams make deep run in playoffs or they win state, the majority of their good players are straight basketball players. So there's that kind of reality out there. But even though I never tell them no, and if a kid really loves football, like, I'm going to support him. Like, I'm going to ask him out his games. Like, I do that. I love the idea of going up to see parents, because I wonder if they have thought in the past of like, oh man, here comes Coach Saban. Like, he's mad at us deep down for playing football. I don't want them to feel that way. So that's a small thing. I definitely haven't gone out of my way to build relationships with our football coaches, and our baseball coach is kind of right next door to me here. So that's a little easier. And I don't know about you. I like the basketball baseball mix because we get them first. Football, basketball is a little harder, right, on our guys and programs sometimes. But one of the biggest nuggets that really helped me, the last AD we had, he still works at our school, John Brooks. He texted us one day, and it wasn't directed at me, but I did take it to heart, because I was going up to some of our players that played football and telling them like about the exciting things we had been doing in the gym.
Yeah.
And I do believe that it wasn't out of a you're missing out kind of tone or feeling. More just like, I know they love the game. I know they love this, man. Like today, man, we were doing some things with some med balls. And he had a point that for us not to tell them anything about what we're doing in basketball at that time. And at first I was like, why? What's the reason or point behind that? And he said, because we don't want them to feel like they're missing out, like they're doing something wrong by investing in another sport. Yeah. And that was, man, 8 years ago. That was the last time that I've ever done that. Like, go up to a kid and talk about. So, there is this. I believe there's a stigma here, and that I don't want multiple sport athletes. And I thought I was doing like everything that I could to try to help that. But I think you've raised some areas where, like, I do though. I not warn, but let all the parents know, like, we basically have kind of 2 tryouts. Like, we're going to have this early on one, and then when the football guys come, and I always sell it like, hey, this is a good thing. Like, they're representing us there. So when they come out, we're going to give them a look. Like, we're going to do that, and I always tell parents, like, that's fair. Would be unfair is if we penalize them when they come out. But all that to say, I think you've raised some really good areas where I can grow.
Well, we point to it, like, when they take tours of Liberty, that's one of the things that the admissions people tell them. Hey, you have the opportunity to play multiple sports here, and so I have to make sure that I honor that. That honor the people that are giving them the tour. And the other thing, I mean, I can think of an instance. Kid came from Colleyville Heritage up here as a sophomore. And so he had just toured, and they reached out and talked and all this. And so I just called Coach Hamrick. So, hey, tell me about this kid. And they told me, hey, he wants to come to Liberty and play football and basketball. So I called Coach Hamrick, and he's like, look, he could probably be a varsity player here in basketball next year if he didn't play football. And that was just the facts of his reality at Colleyville Heritage.
Yep.
That's the way it is there. And so a huge reason that he's here is to be able to do football and basketball. Yeah. And he runs track, and he's a great track kid. And so that was 2 years ago, and he's had an unbelievable amount of success in all 3 sports here. And it's all, I brought this up at our banquet of, like, this is what we should be celebrating kids like this. And these are the kinds of kids that we should be, like a Liberty graduate athlete profile almost, of like, look, this is a kid that was at a big school, because you and I both have a lot of big and really good schools all around us, but you can come to Liberty and do this, be a starting cornerback in football, lead the team in interceptions. When he came here, basketball was his primary sport. He's going to go play football at Lamar now on a full scholarship. And so, but for basketball this year, though, he's honorable mention All-State. It wasn't like he sacrificed one for the other that much. Obviously, there's some sacrifice. There has to be. He carried us down the stretch. We had a lot of injuries, and he basically put us on his back in the last week of the season. We had 3 must-win games, and he just wasn't going to let us lose. And so, and I think that some of that, his toughness and that mentality, came from playing football, from being a 400 runner in track. Running the 400 is one of the hardest things there is, and just, you got to be tough to be really good at that. And
that's right.
I think about, I think that's the kind of kid I want, right? So yes, I sacrifice that he's not there in the fall. That hurts. He is behind. We do now. He is one of the kids too that is around the team, comes to our games. He does go to the team camps in the summer. He's in the gym. He puts forth the effort. That's another thing I tell our kids in the spring when they leave and I know they're going to go to football. I tell them, look, you've made so much progress this year. Whether they have or they haven't, I always say they have. And I try to point out to what they
point guard life,
specific things, what they've done, gotten better at. And I was like, but if I don't see you in the gym, it's from February to November, and outside the football team's going to go far. If I don't see you, like, all of that progress is now you've taken the 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and now you're starting over at square one. And so that doesn't mean that everything we do is mandatory. It just means you can't be a stranger to me, to this gym, to your basketball teammates. And I think our kids appreciate that and they buy into it. And like I said, most of them are, like, on the scale you mentioned earlier, they at least like it. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't like it.
Yeah.
A lot of them love it. And a lot of them are like I was. And so all they want is, Coach, you tell me when the gym's on and I'm open, and I'll be there as often as I possibly can. And so I want to give them those opportunities. But then, like I said, when I go to a baseball game or a football game, I cheer louder for that kid that's a basketball, and I like intentionally do it, and around their parents and things like that. And it's genuine too. It's sincere. I really am rooting for them more
Yeah,
than I am
that's
for the other
good
kid.
though.
Yeah, I just think that goes a long way. I think we've had a lot of success here with those kids. Um, another guy I look at, Bryce Overstreet at Ryan. He always had a ton of success with football guys. We would go look at like Denton Ryan records when I was at North. Kraft would always send me out scouting his entire schedule,
Of
and
course.
before
Yeah.
the second week of the season was over. So I'm like, yeah, Ryan's bad this year. They're down, and so we'd go see him, and then you'd come back and see him in mid-December, and they are just killing it, and they're doing it with football guys, and so he's a good model. I always thought,
Yeah.
and you would see it in his record, like they would be, he sacrificed wins knowing that they were going to be good in district with all these athletes. And so that it was just a model of like it can be done. Like you can have a lot of success. Obviously, I don't want to have to pull from entire. Like I want to have my basketball guys for sure, but I love having a couple of key cogs coming in from football every year.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
Coach, I want to get the speed round done before I got to let you go here for your practice. So these are quick questions. I feel like I know you, but after the speed round, I'm really going to know who you are.
Okay.
You ready?
Let's see. Yeah.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Coach, you paused
Not
right
good
there.
for me, huh?
You paused. You sure about that?
I like cookies and cream too. The cookie dough one is not good for me. I got to stay away from it, but it's my favorite.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Oof, Steph Curry. It's just the other night. I mean, they lost, but he hit some ridiculous shots. It's unbelievable.
And what's cool to see is just how these guys are doing amazing things later on in their careers now. I think it's just a testament to like really where we've come with training. And I mean, when LeBron spends $1.5 million on his body every year, like maybe you and I could still hoop if we were doing that.
Oh, that's the other thing I learned from being around Coach Witten too.
Oh yeah.
Just, he learned from like Dirk Nowitzki. He and Dirk had a lot of talks about that. And so he's shared some of those stories, and it's incredible.
That's awesome.
The hot yoga thing, I might need to get into that.
It sounds awful. Texting or talking?
Talking. I hate texting.
All right, I'll remember that. Greatest basketball movie of all time?
Okay. So I'm one of those people that really likes terrible movies. So it's The Air Up There, the Kevin Bacon. I love that movie.
Nuba. You mean the NBA? Yeah.
Also, this is another. It doesn't really hold up, especially by like cultural standards now. But the Michael J. Fox Teen Wolf as a kid, that was a enthralling movie to me. Wow. It doesn't hold up now when I go back and watch it, but definitely as a kid, that was one of my favorites.
I'm on board with The Air Up There. You lost me. I haven't thought of that movie in a long time.
Oh gosh, that's the coach in that Teen Wolf is the epitome of how not to be a basketball coach. It's so great. He's just so apathetic. It's hilarious.
Oh man. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock. Played in the SBC tournament or in the Houston Christian tournament last year and loved it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to do what you did though against Midland.
Sure. And like I said, but as long as there's not one, if it's to my advantage,
that's right.
Do what it takes
Until
to win.
they change it, you're not doing anything wrong.
Right.
Favorite holiday?
Yes, Christmas for sure.
You're up 3, you're on defense with 7 seconds left. Foul or no foul?
Okay. Early in the season, no foul. We practice it throughout the year. Then late in the season, if I trust my team, they've shown me in practice they can handle these situations, and we foul.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Like on paper, I'm a foul guy, but sometimes you got to go. I don't trust my guys.
That's right. Either way, you better practice it. Either way.
Yeah.
What book would you give someone?
So the book I'm reading right now, I love it. The Steve Magnus, Do Hard Things. I'm almost finished with it, and it's just awesome. It's one that kind of turns over the traditional tropes of what we think being resilient and tough is, and breaks down to what toughness really is. I love
it. Love that. Favorite place to travel?
So I'll go Greece. That was my favorite trip I've been on. But I
Nice.
speak Spanish, so I love going to Spanish speaking countries.
How'd you learn that?
Practice my Spanish. I did a study abroad in Mexico and lived with a family that didn't speak English, and so I picked it up pretty quick.
Wow. That's incredible. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
3.
Always 3?
Always 3.
Space it out. How do you
one
drink
at the
it?
house, one when I get to the school, and then one during my conference period.
How do you drink it?
2 creams, no sugar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Last one.
I feel like you're judging me right now in so many ways.
It did come out. I'm sorry. I was like, oh man, because Wes Watson just said if you want to be a head coach, you drink it black, and so that's what I did.
He would go to Starbucks. He takes his assistants to Starbucks on game.
You would do the runs to Starbucks, and it was I came back.
Your most important job.
Yeah, I can't, and that and making him feel good. That was I always wanted, like, if he came in a new poll, I'd be like, golly, coach, you look sharp. I always wanted him to feel really good about himself. But
Kraft doesn't drink coffee, and
he doesn't.
No, he still had more energy than everybody else.
Yeah, that's surprising. But last one, in basketball, who's the GOAT?
Jordan. I mean, yeah, it's just it'll never change for me. Now, personally, my favorite player of all time is Olajuwon. But
wow, okay.
But I never put that above recognizing who the greatest was.
And I think that can be different because, like, I'm a Pistol Pete guy, you know, and I've never heard somebody say Olajuwon. Where'd that come from?
So I'm from the Houston area.
Okay.
And that was right in my wheelhouse. I'm 13, 14. And to me, you know, I don't know if you ever on the Bob Sturm on the ticket has his players that bring him joy. And when you watch Olajuwon play, it's just to me, it's just
that's a cool question.
It's just something to behold. You know, his footwork was amazing. There was no one else playing the way he played at that time. And I still think what he did would translate now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Coach, I think I just got another speed round question right there. What player did you watch, or have you watched that brings you joy? That's good.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
We did it, man, and I thank you so much for your time. I mean this. I've always really appreciated the way that you run your program. I love how you guys are playing fast and shooting the 3 now, but also the fact that you run a serious program, but the guys work really hard, and also, man, I learned a lot from you today. I really think the 2-sport athlete, those tips that you had that you do to make it a good environment from them. I'm not the only one, I feel like, that maybe struggles in that arena. So, man, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Matt. I like telling people that, I got a lot of Baylor alums, a lot of big Baylor basketball fans. Like, I know Coach Saman. I'll see that they have your book on their bookshelf or their coffee table. Yeah, I know that guy, you know. And, so you're somebody I can name drop.
Whatever. Well, man, I appreciate your friendship. And thank you so much for talking hoops with me.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, Matt. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.